Good evening and welcome to the one, the only Hog Talk podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz Radio Network. So on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall, and we are brought to you by Bet Online. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchups for basketball, baseball, football, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino card games available to play right from your phone. Head over to the website and use your mobile device to sign up today and get on the action. Remember to use our promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus. Bet Online, where the game starts, and we will kick off 2024 with one of our favorite guests, Coach Mike Neighbors. Coach, very impressive start to the year. I think a lot of people who knew the program knew what was coming with the talent of this roster and the depth, but I don't think even me could have predicted what we've seen out of Talia Scott and just how much of a presence she's had her freshman season. And just talk about the non-conference, how things went, and then we'll go into, of course, the SEC play.
Yeah, great to see y'all. Happy to be kicking off 2024 with you. We put it together, a 15-game schedule. A little different than last year. Last year, we kind of built it to a crescendo. We kind of got it increasingly difficult as we went going into SEC play. That was a mistake looking back. And the mistake was that we didn't deal with much adversity until the very end. And then you're dealing with that adversity as you're trying to start your league. Pretty dumb on my part. So we made a little adjustment where we tried to build a little confidence. Then we tried to challenge ourselves with a big 6 or 7 game swing there, and then come out of it with a few games to hopefully learn from those moments and build going into the start of SEC. So I think we did that, and you look back and I literally just left the kitchen table downstairs, autopsying some of that non-conference schedule. We played more top 150 teams than anybody in the country that I've found so far.
And one of them that I want to mention, and it was a loss. And outside of me, you, and the two programs, now nationally, Zay is starting to get some attention. But UAPB coming into this, people don't realize how talented that team was. All they see is the name. And it always seems to happen like that with the women's athletics when it comes to the basketball. There's always that team. ULM was another one. That you look at the front of the jersey and they give you a battle. And I think UAPB is one of them that's really catching people by storm because Zay Green's just been phenomenal. And talk about, what the program, the portal has done for your team, but look at what it's done for ULM and a UAPB, those teams that now they have a chance to go make a run in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's narrowed the difference between the powers and the not powers, whatever number you want to attach to it. It's 5 or 6 or whatever, there's no difference. We knew when we got the schedule and started playing these guys that eventually it was going to happen. It did. And again, to a great team. But Zai Green played for 2 SEC schools. Maori Davenport played. She was a top 15 player coming out of high school. Karai Beck played. All of those kids played at a really high level. And Dawn's done an amazing job getting them collected. And then she's a heck of a coach too. The thing about that game, a few people picked it up, but I don't even want to say it was just they built a great roster. They made an unbelievable adjustment at halftime. Talia is sitting there torching them, and all of a sudden now they come out and trap ball screens and play the ball screens differently, and it changed the way we played. So, yeah, the transfer portal has narrowed the gap between the top 200 and the middle 30 or 40. I think the top 25 stayed, but the gap between number 30 and 200 nowadays, it's just very negligible. And you saw that when we played Monroe, when we played Murray State, when we played UIC, when we played Arkansas. All these guys have good teams now, and the gap is so narrow. And you have a night when maybe you don't shoot it as well, or maybe you don't do this as well, and they do. And we're not the only team. Listen, there were a number of times this year where you would look at the scoreboard page at the end of the night and go, wait a second, is this score right?
Yeah.
Did Oregon really lose to Santa Clara at home by 30? And again, I'm saying it because it happened to us. We were one of those teams. I'm sure there were a lot of people that looked and went, "Holy crap! Do they have those scores flipped?" But again, anybody that knows, I mean, Zy Green's one of the most sought after players coming out of high school, and then when she transferred again. So, I'm not sitting here telling you I'm glad we lost. I'm not. I don't ever want to lose. But I will tell y'all that it made us better. It galvanized us. It taught us some adversity and brought us together. And quite honestly, I don't think we beat Illinois. Had we not lost to UAPB, we probably wouldn't have gone through the things we needed to go through. And I'm just always going to be a coach, as long as somebody lets me run their program, that I don't want to have a bunch of false sense of security at Christmas. I want to know what we're dealing with before we get into league play. I want to have gone through some adversity. I want to have tested our team and our coaches and our fans, figure out who our fans are and who's just on there to get clickbait and all that stuff. But I want to know. I want to know who's really watching and paying attention. And, I want to know the difference between guys like you and Ethan and Daniel and people that cover us, Dudley, and those people that are in that Grant Hall, that are in that locker, that are in that at our practices, as opposed to people that don't ever come to an open practice. I want to know all of those things. So we're going to keep scheduling that way. It's not easy. Losing's hard in any time, but especially in 2023 and 4. But I think our team has come together because of it. And I think our confidence, I don't know where our confidence is at, but I think it's realistic.
So having the 15 non-conference games, kind of getting ready for the conference season, you got 4 players currently averaging double figures. Merriam's right outside at 8 points a game. How have they accepted kind of the roles that they have? Because, any given night, somebody could come up, with that double-double with aiding somebody else, whereas it's not just necessarily one person that's sought after to take over a game.
Well, they've all said it at one time or another. It's kind of a relief to not feel like you've got to go out and get X number of points or X number of rebounds. Now, I'm going to tell you, obviously, we count on Saylor for 12 to 15 defensive rebounds tonight, and we're going to count on Talia to go get 6 or 7 buckets without an offensive play. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then I need Mac and Sam to create another 10 or 15 for each other and her, and then Merriam to protect the rim and get the stuff that comes her way on the given nights. And lead us in 3-point percentage. It's not very often your 5 players leading you in 3-point percentage, but our goals are pretty clear. Porter alluded to it at first. One of our first calls this year, I was talking about how much depth we were going to have. Mm-hmm. But because of Sasha stepping away, Jersey, leaving the program, Emory being injured, all of a sudden that depth's gone. And now you're at 8 and 7 some nights. So we're playing more freshmen than anybody in the league. Mm-hmm. Merriam's a sophomore, Keats is a sophomore, Saylor's a sophomore. If you add up that stuff, we're the youngest team in the SEC by far. And most nights that we played this year in non-conference, we were facing a tremendous experience deficit. Mm-hmm. So I love the fact that our roles are pretty clearly identified. I think anybody that watches us knows what we're expecting out of each kid. And I think we've shown some signs the last few games of role acceptance. I'm going to point a couple of them out. Say Sam driving it against Illinois. Mm-hmm. Sam a couple of years ago or last year might have tried to take that shot or get fouled. Instead, she trusted Merriam. Okay. That's growth. Talia starts going on a heater against UIC in the middle of the second quarter. And again, Sam goes out of her way to seek her to try to get her another 3. Not look for her. I mean, she was actively hunting. Just Max continue to do everything, guard the other team's best player, hold them down, shoot it when we need her to shoot it, make drives, handle our team. I think they're comfortable in their roles. I think they're confident in each other, and I do. I think it allows them to do what they do best. Mm-hmm. We're not asking them to do something outside of what they've worked on.
Well, I want to touch on that, and it goes back to the depth of you're at 8 instead of at 4, or 3. Like you've been in the past. You lose one of your star players, and then you're struggling having 2 guards playing 38, 40 minutes. I mean, Sam and Mac, exclusively their whole
Yeah.
career. They played 35, 40 minutes. I want to ask about the mental aspect of that with Sam being cognitive and not being so tired that you can think to look for Merriam down low. You're not too tired to where you feel like you have to make every play.
Yep.
You have that depth now to feed it down low. Because when I seen the play, I mean, it was just amazing feed. And, for Merriam to be able to finish, I mean, that right there builds confidence too moving forward.
It does. And we've tweaked our practices. We've cut back. We monitor our practice load very closely. Our strength and conditioning coach, Tyler Beckham, does an amazing job, and he tracks these things and gives me feedback and data as to how much we're taxing these kids' bodies. And I've pulled back in practice on Sam, on Sailor, on all those kids, which has allowed now Jenna to get more reps in practice. And Jenna's coming along faster than most post players as a freshman do. Carly Keats making the jump from JUCO. Christina making the jump from Spain, an international player. So those next three kids, and then, now with Emory, the uncertainty of whether she's practicing, playing, not back and forth, it's gone a complete 180 to a 180 the other direction, but we're really hopeful we'll get her back as well. So I think we're headed toward having good quality depth and a very identifiable set of roles and the kids really accepting and valuing each other and the roles that they're in.
But before the season, I had a chance to talk to Sailor when you had your open media day for us. And the one thing I asked her was, the biggest challenge that I seen for her was just she always wore her emotions on her sleeve. If she missed a couple of shots, it seemed like almost that mentality had affected her whole game. Yeah. And I asked her if she was going to work on that. And now how she's been on a blaze to crush the rebound record for a single season, and also being mad beforehand that she was one short of the rebound record beforehand. Just what have you seen the difference in her with her emotions and how much she's grown from last year to this year?
Well, it was the off-season challenge for us. I gave her a couple of books to read that, we had some fun reading together. I read along with her. We had some fun moments with that. But basically, your brain keeps score. It does. And if you beat your brain up, it remembers it when you really need it. And it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be there for you. So let's focus on those things that we are incredible at and stop focusing on maybe missing a layup or missing a 3.0 that you thought you should hit. Let those moments go. And I think she's done a remarkable job with it. Now, as a result, guess what's happening? She's shooting it better. She's passing it better. Everything goes together because your brain keeps score. I've never seen a defensive rebounding non-conference like she just went through. And I had Chantel Osar at Washington who led the country in rebounding that year. But this was different. The people she did it against, the toughness of them, the consistency with which it's done. I don't ever want to count on one player getting 12 defensive rebounds a night. But she's certainly capable of doing that. If she plays 35 minutes, that may be the low end of it. Now, and I know the competition's going to get stronger and they're going to get taller and maybe 2 or 3 of those 15 that she's been getting, but I still want her looking at double digits defensive rebounding. She values that role. Our kids, you're starting to see this. I don't know if y'all noticed it last game. There was a free throw box out, and I think Matt could have got the rebound, but like Sailor kind of like looked at her like, no, this was mine. They do that in the NBA. You watch.
Yep.
And you know what? I'm okay with it. Like I almost the other night, I was getting ready. The game was starting to get, away from us. We were winning it. And I got ready to sub and Callie goes, she has 19 rebounds. And I went, awesome. One more is 20. I went, yeah, I'm aware of the math. One more would I get that? I'm there. And she was just I said, listen, I don't want to leave kids in for stats. I really don't. I got people thought I did when we had Plum, and I never did one time. But rebounding's different than points to me. I might should have left her in there to get that because rebounding is hard. It's an effort thing. it's one of those things too. You can do exactly right, and the ball might not just bounce to you. You can box out, you can track the ball, and the ball just goes the other way. So part of me wished I would have left her in there because 20 has got a nice round number to it. But like you look at Kylie's release, there's only one player in the history that's had 4 19-plus rebound games, and Saylor's done that in the non-conference season this year. That just blows my mind.
Dang.
When it comes to the data analytics, everything, I read on X or Twitter, or whatever you want to call it these days, from Tyler Costin, who calls you his mentor.
Yeah.
He was talking about data-driven, basically conversations coaches have with players, and that you essentially, if your players want to come talk to you about their playing time, they need to bring the data to back it up because you're going to have yours. How open is that with your players, or how much do they look at their own data when it comes to that if they're going to approach anything?
We call it facts and film.
Mm-hmm.
Bring me facts, bring me film. Don't come in here talking about what you can do. Talk to me about what you've done. You got access to every practice. We video. We got access to every game. Clip it. Show me what you're saying. Stop talking to me about it. Be about it. It's very open. Mm-hmm. I think players like it after they understand it because it takes love out of the equation. Mm-hmm. I love them all the same, but that doesn't mean they're all going to get to shoot it the same or rebound it the same or have enough plays. So I think that protects people like Talia too. I mean, Talia should probably honestly get more shots.
Yeah.
She should. She's shooting a good percentage. And so like, if she walked in and said, Coach, I think I need a few more touches, I'm going to go. I mean, I think most people would go, huh? You let her shoot it when I do. Mm-hmm. But quite frankly, because of how many she's made in practice and how many she's made in the first 15 games, she might have an argument for a few more. Mm-hmm. So it takes the pressure off me. It takes the pressure off them. Go out and do it. Go out and prove it. Go out and earn it in practice or in games or in drills. There's a number of ways you can do that. And Tyler talks about these things all the time. I mean, this is just now you can't do it or you won't do it type deal. Mm-hmm. It takes all the pressure off me as a coach because I can say, look at these. This is performance based. I still trust my gut a lot. I don't buy into every analytic that is out there. There are some things that you do still kind of have, but that's valuable information. I think it helps kids. It protects them in the locker room from negativism. Maybe not even in the locker room. Just, I've heard people yelling at Talia to pass the ball. I wish they would shut up because they don't come to practice. Mm-hmm. I am letting her dribble it for a reason. I'm at every practice. I watch every breakdown. Believe me, if I would like her to stop dribbling, I will take her out. But until then, until you come to practice every day and you watch how hard stop yelling at her to pass the ball.
Well, and when you're leading the conference as a freshman in points per game, I mean, that goes back to that productivity. You got people that they're walking the talk, and you see that, and that leads me into the next question about what do you think the driving force is with these freshmen? This is before we started recording. This is one of the most talented freshman classes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Full Wiley. My guy Tyler out in South Carolina, I've been watching her since she was a sophomore in high school. Juju, Talia, Michaela Williams. What do you think's been the driving force behind them being able to come into the SEC Pac-12 and be so confident from the start?
2 factors. One of them is where we're at in the cycle of things. Because what happens in women's basketball is let's take a kid like I'll use Juju for an example. Juju was so good at her school at a young age that the older kids quit and the younger kids quit. So it's the people around her that stay together.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. It happens in Arkansas. It's why we go through 5-year cycles or 3-year cycles. There's a cycle where there's 5 good players and then 4 years in a row, there's not any SEC players. It's just because they dominate the game for so long. Now, the COVID backup is part of this deal too. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of kids that are super seniors and in that grad year as part of that. They've allowed these freshmen a 2-year window. I will tell y'all, there's a lot of kids we passed on in 23 and 24 because of the transfer portal and how our rosters had stacked up. So this group of freshmen that came in this year, they're kind of reaping the benefits of that. 2 years ago in the SEC, the all SEC freshman team, they named 8 players. There were 3 players on that team that didn't average more than 3 points a game. This year, good luck making that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you got 10 really good players. There's going to be 2 players that start and probably average double figures or double rebounds that aren't going to make the all-freshman team in this league. Forget about the national teams, but I think it's great for our game. We need some new blood coming in. We're getting ready to lose Caitlin Clark and a lot of great players to the draft. If Caitlin decides to leave, I'm not sure what she's doing, but, potentially lose a lot of great players to the draft. So I'm really excited for this group to get the opportunity to play at an early stage of their career and go out and produce and do it consistently. And they're all doing it by putting up good percentages too. Again, I mean, it's hard for a freshman guard to come in and shoot over 40% in this league. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So all those kids you mentioned are all doing it, but they're not just doing it with volume. They're doing it very efficiently as well.
And leading into the SEC play, of course, LSU and South Carolina, there are going to be LSU and South Carolina, but, you always have those teams. Look at Tennessee and Rakia Jackson. I mean, it always seems like there's a player like her in the league, whether it's Ryan Howard or Leah Austin when she was at Ole Miss.
Yep.
It's always been that type of player that's come out of the SEC and really given anyone fits. And you could tell that is a WNBA player who outside of the, LSU and South Carolina does the fans need to keep an eye on, and who do you have really circled on your calendar?
Well, you better watch Mississippi State. I think they have the 3rd best talent in the league. And that's just not me saying that. They've got 5 players on their individual position watch lists. Okay. I mean, that's deep. So look out for those guys. Alabama is good as well. I mean, I think they're sneaky good. Florida was picked too low. We all knew it. Texas A&M is the one that I would tell everybody. Again, if all you're doing is going off last year and you're being lazy and not realizing who they brought in the transfer portal, you've done yourself a disservice. But, I would look for those guys to be there, when it comes competitive time. Like you mentioned, I do think LSU and South Carolina have kind of separated themselves. And then, the next 12 schools, it's going to be who stays healthy, who plays right, who plays good at the right times. Because there's no absolute bottom, that's for sure. There's not anybody you look at and go, well, man, they're not very good, because there's just not anybody like that this year in our league.
And of course, we can't, we'll wrap it up with this, just Michaela and just what she's meant to this program, and her being able to ride off in the sunset her last year is the pillar. Her and Chelsea and Amber and Lexus, it seems like she's been here 10 years, but it's also, I remember the freshman that come in and was able to score 30. And you see that this year with Talia. Just talk about her, what she's done for this program and moving forward. What do you think she's been able to do to help those like Talia and Sam come up through and be able to be underneath her wing?
Well, she's won. And I'm taking out the extra year, okay? There's no asterisks involved in she won more games than any Razorback in the SEC in history. More SEC games than anybody in history. That was in 4 years, not counting whatever happens this year. So she obviously legitimized our program, brought us back into competitiveness, gave us 2 of the only winning seasons of the 4 winning seasons in history. Got us to 4 postseasons, nearly got us to 4 straight NCAA tournaments. So her legacy was already set the moment she said, hey, I want to come back and take advantage of my COVID year. When she said that, obviously, when we recruited Talia, we thought Mac was probably not going to be here. I mean, that's just the way it was. But when she said she wanted to come back, I said, hey, that's great. We need you. We need your leadership. But your ultimate legacy here now is going to be cemented by how you leave this place. So do you leave Sam prepared to take the reins, and do you have Talia prepared to be her sidekick? Yeah. And that's going to be – and that's what she's done. She's asked me 3 or 4 times, am I doing a good job of that, Coach? Am I doing the right things? And I want Mac to be more aggressive in the conference. I said it to her yesterday. I said, we need you taking 4 to 6 more shots per game in non-conference. We need that because her percentages are good too. So just like she's done everything else since she's been here, she has done what's best for the team. It all goes back. I've credited her mom and dad and her youth coaches with raising the kid right, the military background that they come from. Do your job. Do your responsibilities. Live out your rank. And, you know, as long as I'm around to tell the story, she's going to be considered in that Mount Rushmore. She'll be a kid in a few years. You know, when they start talking about Hall of Honor, I'm throwing her name out there.
And how much of it is driven by her wanting to go out and giving that program that postseason win, that NCAA tournament win, you know, how close she is to the program, what the program is meant to her. You know, how much of that's a driving force of I want to go out and, like she's even said, leave it better than what it was when she got here. And that's hard to say when you come in with, you know, Chelsea Dungy and Amber Ramirez, but to come out with the tournament win, you know, how much do you think that would mean to her?
Well, it would mean a lot to her. To me, it's still not going to define her. Again, as long as I'm sitting here and anybody will have the conversation with me, if the COVID year had to happen, we'd have won an NCAA tournament game. And if we had to play on a neutral floor, if we'd have had that game in Bud Walton Arena the year we had to play on a neutral floor, we'd have won that game too. So I'm not going to let anybody hang on her that she hasn't won an NCAA tournament. They would be factually right, but they're not contextually right. And they won't win that argument with me. They will end up eventually going, oh, yeah, admitting it. But if she can cement it with an actual one, y'all seen Mac dance, right? Mm-hmm. When she hits a half-court shot, or Mac will deserve any dance whatsoever to get that. If she could make that happen, I would let her dance and do whatever they want to do. And I might even dance for her. But she's earned it. And it's not going to, you know, it doesn't have to happen for her to still be in our Hall of Honor someday, but it would make it a no-brainer. She wants it badly. All she cares about is winning. She doesn't care about honors. She doesn't care about stats. She doesn't care about stuff. She wants to be remembered as somebody that, like you said, left it better than she found it, and will always be remembered as a winner. So she wants to win everything. My God, we had downstairs at my house when we got back from Christmas, we did balloon races with ping pong balls and stuff, and she was wanting to win those just as badly as she is at Kentucky on Thursday night, I promise you.
Well, Coach, it's always a pleasure you coming on and joining us, and can't wait to get back up to Bud Walton eventually and be able to watch the team and close out the season and close out, you know, Michaela's career. And best of luck to you in SEC play.
All right. Appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
All right.
Well, that was Coach Mike Neighbors of the women's basketball team as they open up SEC play against Kentucky on the road. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some New Year's resolutions, the college football playoff, and we'll finish it off with some Razorback basketball after the break.
Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Spring. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to get the results you deserve. Contact the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company.
And want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast again. Special thanks to Coach Neighbors for always jumping on. Adam, we've had an eventful couple of weeks. We took Christmas holiday off, New Year's holiday off, spent time with our families. And now that it's 2024, I have to say, we'll start it off with the college football playoffs. And, for it being the last year of 4 teams, next year going to 12, you could say what you want. And I know no matter where you stand on the whole Florida State argument, it was really good to see 2 excellent down to the wire 4-quarter games in the semifinals opposed to 2 blowouts like we're used to.
Yeah. I went into both games last night, just watching it without a bias, watching it with no dog in the fight, just enjoying football. Cause I think too many times, fans, media, everybody, all the above, there's too many agendas. There's too many, whatever the case may be of, picking apart one team, but not last night I just sat and enjoyed the games.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk about the good things on both sides. At the same time, you can talk about the negative things that happened during the game, play-wise, play call-wise, referee-wise, whatever. It's nice sometimes to be able to sit back and do that with, taking off whatever color glasses you might have on and just watching it for what it was. They were 2, very intense, good games.
And to start with the Alabama-Michigan game, come down to a botched play, bad snap, read, and but it was one of those games we're talking about, an excellent game where the best team won. It's just because we know how college football goes, but it was like, we're going to do the best we can to keep you out of the end zone. It wasn't an offensive shootout where it was a one-sided game as then just an offensive onslaught. And even in the Texas-Washington game, even though the score was higher, look, it come down to a defensive stop to really, in the game. And it's really refreshing to see that, where 2 teams, Alabama and Michigan, that really just wanted to win that game. And Michigan should have won that game by a lot more than they did, because just how they were overpowering Alabama, but they seemed to get away from their run game.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they would have just stuck with the run game and kept pounding and wearing them down, it could have been a 2-touchdown score game. But that's what happens. You can't let a team like Alabama stay in the game because, it didn't go their way. But teams like Alabama will beat you if you keep on giving them the chance to sit there and knock on the door.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure that, Michigan had it in them there at the end to score. That they had just struggled for so long, and then they got those chunk plays there on that last drive. I think that ended up being like 3 or 4 plays, 75-yard drive for the score. But early on, I mean, they set the tone with their defense coming in. I think Milroe was sacked 3 times in the first quarter or something like that. I mean, it was just they came out with a purpose. I honestly, from the get-go, I didn't see that game turning out the way it did. Yes, history kind of plays a little bit of a factor in that. I just kind of thought that Alabama was going to come in and have it their way. And, there's difference. Each team has a different style of play, some similarities, a lot of differences. And you saw, I mean, 2 different games. I thought with the Washington game and Washington, Texas, I thought that was going to be a much higher scoring game, which, I mean, you were still both in the 30s, but I thought you were going to be looking at the 40s and 50s the way that game started.
Yeah, and I just the way my prediction of it, I think Washington's going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Michigan. I mean, you look at it. We're talking about Alabama for a second, and you didn't have the typical Alabama quarterback. You don't have any go-to wide receiver. Your running back is not the running back, a typical Alabama program running back, and they still made the college football playoff. They still were 1 play away from getting to the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I know you play the game and it's going to be a different game, but just watching Washington and how they just ran up and down the field. And I know a lot of people, Jaden Daniels and won the Heisman, but I think the Heisman Trophy needs to be decided after the season.
Mm-hmm.
And also I made a point to a buddy of mine, not saying that Jaden Daniels wasn't deserving, but there was a lot of people who, it was Jaden Daniels and then Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was getting a lot of that Pac-12 hype. Michael was just sitting there kind of in the background. Then we seen kind of how Caleb Williams just fell off. I mean, flat. It's that Dr. Pepper curse,
Mm-hmm.
It's the new Madden curse. It's whoever's the spokesperson for Dr. Pepper next year just needs to sit it out. But I think that hindered him. It's almost like when Felix Jones and Darren McFadden, back in those days when you're splitting stats, when it come to, did that keep Darren McFadden from getting Heisman votes because he was splitting the touches between him and Felix Jones and Peyton Hillis? Same thing, I think what happened with Penix Jr. is Caleb Williams' hype from the beginning to when he fell off. It was almost like it was playing catch up. And then you're playing in the Pac-12 where who really wants to see a game and watch him play at 11, 12, 12:30,
Yeah. Yeah. Early on in the season, I think it was around week 3 or week 4, I was sitting around with some buddies. I think it was when we were watching I guess it may have been further on. We were watching the Arkansas LSU game, and we were just talking about Jaden Daniels and then some of the other potential Heisman. And I mean, my pick was Penix.
Yeah.
Since early on in the season, he just has something about him that I don't really see in other quarterbacks, the way he commands the field, and just his natural ability. And I think that throughout the season, and then especially after, Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman, I think Penix, now that he is on this stage in the CFP and now the national championship, he's going out to prove who the best quarterback is.
Yeah.
So
I've seen that. I got to witness that with Deshaun Watson. He beat Lamar Jackson head to head. I know it was on an errant. If the wide receiver wouldn't have ran out of bounds, they probably would have scored and beat him. But a win's a win. And then he ended up winning the national championship that year. I see this kind of starting to happen, but also, Penix is he's got a chip on his shoulder, but he's humble about it. And I think that's the biggest thing is he's poised. And I think when he wins, I do think they'll beat Michigan next Monday. I think he's still going to be humble about it, but he's going to show the naysayers that, that they should have picked him over Jaden Daniels. But it still doesn't take anything away from Jaden Daniels because, I mean, he did put up some impressive numbers. He was, again, like you want to bring up Darren McFadden. I mean, it was a 9-3 season and for them, and I guess was the win over Wisconsin 10-win season. Does that Did that
I
put them
think,
in
yeah,
10-win
at
season?
that point, yeah.
Still a good win for them. But I just think that we need to kind of move that back. And especially with the 12-team playoff, you're going to have more key games for these people to play in. And the fact that we're probably going to see less opt-outs. We're going to see more star players playing in this. I can't wait for it. If this was any kind of indication of what a 12-team playoff is going to be, I can't wait to see what next year brings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with going to the bowl season, going into the college football playoff. I mean, I think expanding the playoff into other bowl games, that's going to help with your opt outs because more teams are going to have players that have something to play for. Now, outside of the CFP, who knows until the NCAA comes down and makes changes to the opt out, or with the way NIL is right now. I mean, I don't see why they can't work something to where the sponsors of particular bowl games have some NIL package for the players that play in the game, just to give them more incentive than just a trophy and media recognition.
Well, yeah, if you watch the LSU game, they were running a Jaden Daniels commercial. I think it was a Powerade commercial. He's sitting on the sideline in the LSU Wisconsin game, not playing. But and that's where it does get touchy when you even talk about the subject of should they play, should they not. But to me, it's like you're being paid to play. It's kind of, I mean, yes, Jaden Daniels has nothing to prove, blah, 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 but you're still playing for your team. You're still representing that team, and you're still, and now if you even want to kind of dare say it, that's your company. You're playing for LSU. Yes, you're not being paid by it's almost like you're an independent contractor for LSU. You're not getting paid by LSU, but yet you're playing for them. But you're getting paid NIL money. Your commercials being ran on a game that you're not playing in. It's just, to me, it's like, we'll see how this 12-team playoff goes because that's going to drive ratings, of course. But to me, it's like if this becomes a more normal thing where if it's not the big games, how much longer until these big sponsors start dipping out because they're not playing? The TV ratings go down. That's my biggest thing is it going to eventually start affecting where, yes, we've seen a lot of majority of fans that don't agree with the opt-outs and stuff, which they have the right to do. But it comes a point of if you're being paid to play a season of football, I think that you should honor that contract. And especially, like I said, with Jaden Daniels' deal, you're sitting on the sideline in uniform, but yet we're watching a commercial that you're getting paid to be in. That's the only thing that really didn't sit right with me during the whole thing is seeing that. Like, you're able to play, there's a commercial you're being paid for, but you're not on the field playing.
Yeah, and I think some of that's that touchy subject, the kind of not really gray area, really, because it's not. But with the NIL, it's not based on how many games you play, based on performance.
Yeah.
It can't be tied to. They've got to figure out something, and even if it's not directly driven with the NILs, I mean, I just don't understand. Which I know the opt outs really kind of started back around 2017 with Christian McCaffrey and Stanford. And then you've just seen it progress since then. And, I think a lot of it's more about the me than it is the team. In some aspects these days, it's players that, we're going to like now with playoffs, they don't have necessarily bowl season used to mean a lot more than it does now.
Yeah.
So, before it was, you want those 6 wins to get your bowl berth. You play because you're going to play somebody you hadn't played. You got the storylines. And then it's just dwindled year by year. And I think some of that at one point in time was because they were adding so many bowl games.
Oh,
when we were up to like 65, 70 different bowl games, and they're having to scrap for teams to put in.
Into a bowl game.
And so now they've created the storm between that. And then now you've got players that are like, I don't feel like playing. I've got my future. It's hard to watch some of these players that I think I was more shocked by the players that announced transferring that were still on the sidelines of some of these bowl games.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you are going to go. You're basically opting out and going to another school,
Mhm.
but you're there receiving the swag bag, or you're there getting the perks.
Mhm.
But then again, it's almost like, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else. It's like a 2-week notice. It's like,
Yeah.
it is touchy. And look, people can make their decisions. They can do as they wish. And I was an advocate of the opt-outs. I was an advocate of, and still am. But to me, yet there's still consequences and there's still reactions to that of now they're getting paid. Now they're getting money to play. They've wanted to get paid, we need to get paid, rightfully so. I've said all along, as soon as the NCAA made it a business, they should deserve to get money. Now they're getting that money.
Mhm.
And if you're in some kind of agreement, that's another thing. I think that if they're going to start giving out these big lucrative NIL deals, it's going to be, hey, look, you got to finish out the season. Because again, if you're a big bank or you're a big time person, say Dr. Pepper or Powerade, you're throwing out this money to see this person in this bowl game and they're not there. I don't know that. Again, it goes back to the point of when are they going to start not giving out the bigger deals? When is it going to be like a bunch of smaller localized deals opposed to people getting the big $1 million contracts?
Yeah, I don't think the NCAA really knew. Of course, none of us really knew what the NIL and things like that were going to cause in the beginning when it was announced. But Nick Saban last night also after the post game, they were talking about. I think it was after the game, the pay for play, and this is basically one step away from the NCAA becoming a semi-pro with the way that it's going.
Oh, yeah, and it is because. Again, you have, it's almost like chemistry. You have two elements by themselves that are very good. Transfer portal over here, NIL over here. But when you mix them up, now it turns into a toxic combination because now donors and boosters, and you've got schools that are making Arkansas with the edge. And, there's even, I want to say was Ole Miss where if you were at a restaurant and they asked you if you wanted to round up your change to go to their fund, now it's getting to the point where you're at Sonic, instead of tipping the car hop, you're tipping the NIL fund. It's almost like the athletic programs, and I can't remember who tweeted it out, but it was very, very good tweet. It was, we want to have a tax-free program for our players, but we want the fans to help pay for this tax-free. We want taxpayers to pay for our tax deductions. It was somewhere along the lines of that. And that's what it is, because taxpayers, fans, donors, they're paying into this to people who are going to get a tax break off of this. The LLC, it's so it's just funny to where how, like you said, how crazy it's gotten where, I don't know. I thought the coaches and administration, I thought they had to kind of stay out of it. I didn't even think they could be involved in this stuff.
And that's the way that it's been led to believe. Like coaches were not, it was not allowed to be in a recruiting tactic. Coaches weren't allowed to talk to players about it coming in, whatever. But you see too often, so-and-so got offered X amount of dollars to come here. It's like, obviously, somebody there's
ADs coming out making campaigns. You've got coaches coming out doing campaigns. That's where, again, it gets to where it's going to be dicey. It's already dicey. And I don't think it will ruin college football, because college football will always be great because, it's like NFL. You can do what you want. People are still going to watch the NFL. It's all about preference. I don't think it will kill college football, because now with 12-team playoff, we're going to see a lot more teams that are able to. We have a reason to play now. We have a goal to obtain in 12 teams instead of 4 now, where a team, say like Florida State, look, they went undefeated and lost their quarterback and didn't get a chance to play in the college football playoff. Now that same situation happens with it being 12 teams. Hey, we're going to put you at 8, 9, or 10. prove that you deserved, and at least they have a chance to play for it. I think that's going to be the biggest difference. What we'll see.
Yeah, I think moving to the 12, which, I know a lot of people, and I've even thought it myself, that, the SEC being down this year across the board. But, opening up to 12 games, I think you're looking at a potential, just based on looking at, like, say, this year's SEC or SEC standings and where they were against the country. I think out of 12, you could be looking at potentially 4 or 5 of those teams out of the 12 being SEC.
4 at the minimum. Just how the landscape is. I mean, because look, you're already adding it. I can't pull up the rankings or nothing right now, but I mean, you're looking at Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Missouri,
Ole Miss,
and then Texas. I'm trying to. Am I missing anybody else, or is that it? I'm just talking about like top 12 teams because I mean,
no, I'd say going into 24 with Texas coming in. Yeah, that's what you're looking at.
I'm looking at how they finished this year. If there'd have been 12 teams playoff,
I think Tennessee's like sitting at 15.
So you're looking at 4 easy, and that's especially with how the Big Ten's doing. ACC, especially if Florida State leaves, that's just one more spot for a Big Ten or a SEC team because the Pac-12's dissolved. Big Ten, it's going to be pretty much Big Ten, SEC, and then, hey, we're going to, kind of like what they did with Liberty this year. They're going to give an extra spot to some Power 5 team. It's going to be one of those types of deals because Big Ten, and I don't know if it's going to be the Big 16 now or whatever they're going to go to, but that's going to be interesting to see. You imagine a 3-loss team playing for a national championship. But we could see that because now look at the landscape of the SEC in no divisions. An SEC team could lose 3 games and still make it to the college football playoff and then win it. I mean, look at Alabama. I mean, Alabama needed a prayer to beat Auburn to get into it, but they went toe-to-toe with Michigan. You give Nick Saban 30 days to prepare for any team. That was my deciding factor. Is other than Ohio State, they've never lost in a semifinal game. It's always been in a national championship game.
Out of all the changes I think that we've seen over the last couple of years, this year, what's coming next year, I think we're looking college football is going to look completely different in the next 5 to 10 years. With, we'll still see some reminiscence of what's going on right now and the recent past, but the landscape of the whole thing, with conferences, with college football playoff, with players getting paid, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's going to be a night and day difference.
We'll end it on this question. I'll ask you. What do you think the NCAA will be 5 years from now? Do you think there'll be an NCAA? Do you think, is this headed to where it could be 2 or 3 super conferences and they just split away from the football side of it? They split away from the NCAA.
I think you're looking at maybe not 5, but upward between that 5 and 10 year mark. You're going to see 3 to 4 super conferences, with the SEC leading the way. That they are going to set their own rules and break apart from the NCAA. And then, so essentially, I think you're going to have, we'll say, their championship, and then the NCAA is still going to have their own with essentially your group of 5 or other, the conferences that don't get in.
Yeah, and you look at the NFL, how it became the NFL. There was 2 different leagues that who's the best. So they decided to have this Super Bowl, and I think that's where we're headed. I think that's where we're headed, to where it's going to be 2 leagues, the superiority, whatever. It's almost going to be like you got your FCS teams, then you're going to have the other level team, and then I think there's going to be that gauntlet, those 30-something teams or whatever that are going to be its own league. They're going to have their own division. They're going to have their own money, because when it comes to it, there's more money to be made. Then they're going to be able to fund the basketballs and the softballs and the volleyballs. And I think that's where we're headed to. We're headed exactly like what you said beforehand with a semi-pro. It's going to essentially be a semi-pro team, because you look at it, the SEC is already like that with Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not picking on Florida State at all, but they were playing a quarter and a half with an all freshman offense and was scoring at will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who was opting out, who wasn't there. That was a freshman running back, freshman tight ends, freshman wide receivers, offensive. I mean, the whole squad was pretty much freshmen, and they were just imposing their will. And that is the difference between the Georgias, Alabamas, and the Michigans and the rest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
You see it. But tomorrow night, we're going to have Next Up Sports, one of the premier up-and-coming high school Arkansas content creators. You can catch them on Instagram. I mean, they've come out with a lot of amazing high school videos. They do Arkansas coverage. I think they covered their first Little Rock game, basketball game the other night. But we're going to have them on tomorrow night. So we're going to be more geared towards basketball on tomorrow's show. We're going to get back in the swing of things, doing 2 to 3 shows a week with basketball really ramping up, SEC play, women's. So expect a lot more content. We kind of been slacking for the last couple of weeks, but we wanted to take some time off to be with our families, and just how, Christmas and New Year's fell on a Monday. It was, New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve to do a show. And so we're going to come back full force, ready to go. Expect more content, more graphics, more pictures, more posts. Adam is always killing it with new ideas to bring Arkansas content to social media. So we're really looking forward to that, having the guys on. Also, we have 2 new sponsors to the Hog Talk podcast: Arkansas Tech University Ozark campus and the Ozark A&P Commission. Pretty much the Ozark, the city of Ozark, my hometown, is allowing me to, great honor being able to talk about the town you grew up in and advertise for tourists to visit the area with the wineries and the breweries and the river, the mountains, everything that goes along with being able to explore the Ozarks, where I'm from, where Adam's from. So I'm very honored to be able to announce that we will be advertising and a sponsor for the city of Ozark and Arkansas Tech University Ozark campus. So moving forward, you're going to see a lot of posts about, schedule events, programs that Arkansas Tech University offers there at the campus. So we're very happy to have them on board, and be looking forward to all that content. And we will catch you tomorrow night.